Hi, my name is Bruce Swartz. I'm from Montreal, Quebec. I study in astronomy and I study and research in ufology. Ufology, science, it's all speculation. It's all theorizing. It's using common sense. And that's the only tools that we have to be able to come to a conclusion with any given subject. Now, here's a very interesting one. Before I talk about the Goldilocks zones on the moon and the very many areas with liquid water on the moon. They never said that there wasn't, but they're just not bragging about it. First of all, in space and in general, the Goldilocks zone, we're talking about areas where these zones are habitable zones, either in space, on other celestial objects, like including the moon. It's a range of distance with the right temperatures for water to remain liquid on the surface. Discoveries in the Goldilocks zone, like Earth-size planet Kepler. First of all, here's an example. They are what scientists hope will lead us to water, and one day finding alien life. Well, let me tell you something. The Goldilocks zone is a habitable zone where liquid water can exist. So let's head over to the other information that I was able to find here, which are the scientists have discovered, and this is very recent news. We're talking about a couple days ago, 5 days ago. Scientists discovered 200 Goldilocks zones on the moon where astronauts could survive. Scientists discover pits on the moon. This is also recent, after a recent experiment, that are room temperature in the shade. Lunar scientists actually think, guys, that they found the hottest places on the moon, as well as some 200, as I said, Goldilocks zones that are always near the average temperature in San Francisco. Nice, eh? The moon has wild temperatures, they say, fluctuations, which parts of the moon heating up to, they say, 260 degrees, which is Fahrenheit, which is 127 degrees Celsius, but that's only in the warmest regions, right? During the day, and dropping to minus 280 Fahrenheit and minus 173 Celsius at night, but again, in the coldest regions of the moon. So they're making it sound like the moon is a freezing Antarctic place with no life, no oxygen, and there's a lot of lies in that, because there is an atmosphere on the moon. There is water, even liquid water. They've admitted in the past that from the northern poles, the water actually comes down to other areas on Earth's side of the moon, the one that we can all see. The newly analyzed 200 shaded lunar pits, by the way, they're in the shade, okay? Which they should be freezing, but they are not. They're always 63 degrees Fahrenheit to 17 degrees Celsius. I thought it was 68, supposed to be Fahrenheit. I think they made a mistake there. Meaning they're perfect for humans to shelter from the extreme temperatures. So do you know what I'm getting at? For those of you that are like me, wanting to find out what the hell is going on the moon, we have another possibility that, for example, if humans were living there, there are so many areas with running water and Goldilocks zones. That means habitable zones where humans can live. And I'm going to go as far as saying, which I believe, just my opinion, vegetation. If there's running water, if the temperatures are nice and warm, if we got vegetation here on Earth, why would it not be on the moon? They say in the past on Mars, when it was wetter, before it was bombarded by particles, which apparently destroyed everything. They're just doing recent studies from the sun here. Maybe the Martians left Mars to come to Earth. After that would have happened, they would have obviously looked for another area to live. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we were Martians ourselves, adapting to Earth's atmosphere without us ever really knowing, right? Well, add a few DNA experimentations into that, and, you know, with everything going on, we're far from finding the source of it all, that's for sure. We can only come up with so many conclusions ourselves. So these partially shaded pits and dark caves could be ideal for lunar bases scientists are saying this. So that's very interesting. Surviving the lunar night is incredibly difficult, so they say, because apparently it requires a lot of energy. But being in these pits and caves almost entirely removes that requirement, does it not? Now, this is something that they found out a long time ago, okay? This is a revelation that's been over a decade in the making. The first pit on the lunar surface was discovered in 2009 by, JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agencies. However, this new work has been done using a thermal camera. The Diviner Lunar Radiometer experiment on NASA's Robotic Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, the LRO. Of the 200 pits discovered, 2 to 3 have overhangs that lead to caves, while 16 appear to be skylights. Let me explain. They call the skylights are the actual part of the lava tube that caves in. Those skylights are serving as, I believe, exits and entrances to these lava tubes. Once the lava tube is finished with the flowing lava flows through that sometimes continually, and when it stops, when it empties that tube out, that vein becomes hollow, and you have a natural formation that would prevent against asteroids, against meteor strikes, against weather, against enemies, and against everything. Many stars have been confirmed to possess a circumstellar habitable zone. First of all, a circumstellar habitable zone is the habitable zone in the range of orbits around a star within which a planetary surface can support liquid water given sufficient atmospheric pressure. They say many stars have been confirmed to possess planets around them in their habitable zones, including some systems that consist of multiple circumstellar habitable zone planets. Most such planets, let's give you an example, being either, first of all, they're super Earths or gas giants, like some of the ones we know well here in the solar system. There could be as many as 40 billion Earth-sized planets orbiting in the habitable zones of sun-like stars. About 11 billion of these may be orbiting sun-like stars, Proxima Centauri b, located about 4.2 light years from our planet. It's in the constellation of Centaurus. It's also known as the nearest known exoplanet, and it's orbiting in the habitable zone of its stars. Is there life outside of Earth? Well, you could be pretty sure. Whether there is or not, they have these planets, giant planets, bigger than Earth. They call them super Earth, that can hold many humans or beings for a long time. Imagine all the studies. Imagine finding a super Earth and that we could live there, and that the planet was just formed in the past million years. We could live there for another, billions of years, more billions of years. In the atmosphere of the moon, there are water molecules, even though they say that the atmosphere on the moon is a thinner atmosphere. They've confirmed water at the poles, NASA themselves, in 2018, August to be exact. They said that the water from the poles was melting and going to other regions on Earth's side of the moon. So there's this big rumor that water can't exist on the moon because it would literally rot, become decomposed, and the water would be lifted up into outer space and be lost, except for the frozen water, of course. But I have a problem with that. And I'm going to bring up another really good one. Is those pits that they just recently found a few days ago, connected to caves also on the surface of the moon. Well, what if the water that's flowing from the poles, either the south or the north one, that reach that or one of those areas where there are pits, because we're talking about 200 habitable zones on the moon, inside deep crevices or craters and pits connected to caves. Think of it. What if the water flows there into those pits? You're not going to say that it's going to decompose if it's hiding inside of caves. Come on there. I mean, push, but push equally. Here on Earth, too, there's lots of water inside of our Earth, inside caves. Clear, fresh drinking water inside of caves. Can you imagine that happening on the moon? If the water would reach those pits and descend into those pits, it's a beautiful area to be able to live without even knowing if there's vegetation or not. We're pretty close to having our solution, though. We got, except for oxygen, supposedly, even though it's a little low, we could terraform the moon. We literally could go there and live there. We have the right temperature, 17 degrees, and get this, NASA themselves say hoodie-like temperatures. So that's the coldest you'll ever get, living inside of those lava tubes and pits, whatnot, and depending on how deep they are. Think of it, hundreds of feet deep, and the temperatures are just like in San Francisco. Interesting. You know, when they landed on the moon, supposedly, no, they didn't. Apollo 11, they would have landed at a temperature, if I'm not mistaken, 29 degrees Celsius. I would not be surprised if they admitted that there was water in those deep pits. And eventually, I'm telling you, I am sure, almost positive in theory, that it is going to come out, because I think it only makes sense. They say that the sunlit areas of the moon do not have any water, and that they cannot hold liquid water because it would evaporate, condensation, and everything would lift, go back up to outer space. Well, hang on. Isn't that what happens to the water here? When the sun hits it on a sunny day, it evaporates. I mean, duh. Take a glass of water, bring it outside. If it's not sunny, the glass of water won't move. If it's sunny, the glass of water is going to evaporate. Hello? Considering that we don't know exactly what the atmosphere is on the moon, because we don't know if they're telling us the truth or not, because there is an atmosphere on the moon, even though possibly could be thinner. Fire, water, everything acts differently in microgravity, which means a celestial object that has low oxygen to no oxygen. So the water freely flowing on the moon can be in many locations still there and accumulate as big as rivers, I believe, in theory. Let me explain. The moon's on a tilt. The axis that it has exactly blocking out a part of the moon from sunlight goes down to 100, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm surprised I remember this, minus 173 degrees. In certain areas, it varies in different depths. But now, just, again, recently, 5 days ago, talking about normal temperatures, like room temperatures, 300 feet down in pits. So for sure, the water coming from the poles has to reach some of those pits. We're talking about just what they talked about, 200 habitable zones and regions, pits connected to caves. Imagine the possibilities, guys. In July 2018, scientists from the Italian Space Agency reported the detection of such a subglacial lake on Mars. Did you know that? We're talking below the southern polar ice cap. It's spanning 20 kilometers, 10 miles, horizontally. And that was the first evidence, so they say, of proof of a stable body of liquid water on the planet Mars. So listen, if ice exists on Mars and that there's liquid water underneath it, why are they not talking about the liquid water under the ice caps or sheets on the moon and the polar regions or wherever there is ice, even in the depth of the crater, since there's supposedly this fluctuation, apparently, of the temperatures that rise drastically and descend drastically. And now, just last year, if I'm not mistaken, maybe maximum 2 years ago, they admitted that there were depths as low as 10,000 feet into certain areas. So if they're talking about just 300 feet down, normal temperatures, they don't have to, people maybe thought that, wow, we'd have to dig thousands of feet down to be able to get away from those temperatures. No, 300 feet down, you could walk around in a hoodie, and happy to say that they just confirmed that 5 days ago. So think of the possibilities. Well, I'll tell you why they're not talking about the liquid water on the moon. America is not doing any projects about water on the moon. And if they are, I guess they are now, but weren't in the past. And like I say often, NASA, it's not that they are lying about everything. Well, they might be. I don't know. I'm not to judge. But I think it's more of the fact that they are hiding certain findings, many findings. Obviously, that's aside from all the secret projects they say they are doing, which they've admitted many times that they were doing secret projects. And now many other countries are doing secret projects too. They're launching secret spy satellites, and they don't even hide it. They're saying spy satellite was launched. And you see, it's all a game, right? It's all a game between the countries. They don't give a crap, a rat's ass about us. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. And what's happening is that when America does something, the United States of America in space, and Japan, China, UK, France, every other country, Canada, when everyone's watching, Russia especially, when everyone's watching what they're doing, often they will say things in the media that are to divert the attention to the actual real thing they are doing. So a lot of bullshit comes out on the media, and it's all propaganda just to change and to confuse other countries. But it's confusing all the people, obviously, because we never know when they're telling the truth. Now, what we see them doing in the States, Biden himself, changing laws. And guys, they're changing definitions to words just to make things for them, the left. Imagine. There's no joke. Remember the famous hut or building, constructed object that China found on the moon? So, is China going to build something on the moon? Apparently they will. China will, this year, begin work. That's right. So if they're not talking about what's going on, they're now building on the moon based on what they're saying here. So China will, this year, begin work on the next phase of its lunar program to build a base on the moon for research. Right. Its space agency announced a project in cooperation, well, look at that, with Russia that will rival NASA's own efforts to establish an orbital facility. This was April 24th, 2022. So do you think there's going to be a war on the moon? If there's a war here on Earth, you be damn sure about it. China is trying to claim the moon as its own, so says NASA's administrator, Nelson. That's what they said. And you know what? I actually believe it. Yeah, I literally imagine the space wars yet again. Have they ever ended? They probably always have existed, ever since they've been capable, all the countries of the world, of capability of being in space using communications, equipment, and now weaponry. Listen, we got them in the direct energy satellites, direct energy weapons. They can take out ballistic missiles, see them underground in countries. They can see inside of the oceans now. It's, we've seen it very recently. They've been talking about that. They know everything now that's in the ocean. They looked over the tropical forests and rainforests that they can see. They took x-rays of the surface now, and they can see all the Mayan pyramids and temples and everything that's there. So all this information is being gathered by the elites and the ones doing secret projects and the rulers of the world. And they're not telling all of this necessarily to the people. The people so want to know. It is so unfair when you think of it. I understand that there's a need of a governance when there's that many people on a planet, but it got out of hand, and now we lost rights to everything. We lost our freedom of speech, and so on and so forth, right? All the information that we all want to know is right here on YouTube and on websites, on the internet. The information really is there. I mean, all the information way back from the beginning of time, it's all there, but it's the time that we need to find it all. But podcasts like this and, information is important to have on YouTube. And when they start taking away that freedom of speech, where we won't have a chance to be able to express ourselves. A great big thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time to stop by the podcast. I hope if you're new to this channel, you will definitely take the time to check out the research. Thanks so much.